Most people think the global economy is complicated, but when you understand the basics, it is really simple. I know it still comes across as something only economists, politicians, or Wall Street insiders understand. But the truth is, the global economy isn't complicated. There are just basic foundational principles you must know and understand. And we can all agree that this topic is often poorly explained. In this video, I'm going to show you how the global economy actually works, using a simple framework we all can understand and appreciate. No politics, no headlines, no hype. Just how money, power, and business move around the world, and how that affects everyday life, even you and I. This video is important because once you understand this framework, every other economic topic starts to make sense, and you'll be able to connect the dots. Part 1. What changed? The world is more connected than ever. Let's start with what changed. The world today is more interconnected than at any point in history. Countries don't operate in isolation anymore. Instead, they rely on each other for energy, food, technology, labor, and capital. A phone designed in one country uses materials from several others and is assembled somewhere else entirely. Crazy, right? I know, but it's all about getting things done as cheap as possible, while maintaining good quality. But some would even argue that quality is starting to become less of a priority, oftentimes for cheaper cost of production, which in turn makes for higher profit margins. Money flows across borders in seconds. Companies operate in dozens of countries at once. Supply chains stretch across the globe. Money is always moving. This interconnectedness makes the global economy more efficient, but also more fragile. When something breaks in one part of the world, the effects don't stay local. They start to spread and affect multiple parts of the global economy. Part 2. The core idea. Everything is linked. Here's the most important idea to understand. The global economy is a system. And in that system, three things are always linked. 1. Capital, money, and investment. 2. Trade, goods and services. 3. Policy, government and central bank decisions. You can't change one without affecting the others. Yes, the system is strong, but it is very delicate at the same time. This is where most people get confused. They hear about interest rates, or trade wars, or government spending, but they don't see how it all connects. So, let's break it down. Part 3. Capital. How money moves. Capital is just money looking for a return. It moves toward stability, opportunity, and safety. When conditions are good, capital flows easily. And this is what we like. Businesses borrow. Investors invest. Consumers spend. When conditions worsen, capital pulls back. This is just the start. It's tougher to get approved for loans. Investments slow down, sometimes fast and sometimes slow. Risk is avoided. Capital is extremely sensitive. It often reacts earlier than most people notice. That's why markets often move before the real economy does. Part 4. Trade. How goods move. Trade is how countries exchange what they're good at producing. Some countries export energy. Some export food. Some export manufacturing. Some export services. Trade works best when supply chains are smooth, transportation is reliable, political relationships are stable. But when trade is disrupted by wars, sanctions, pandemics, or conflicts, costs rise, and this is what we do not like to experience. But it happens, and we have to be prepared for when it does happen. Prices go up, shortages appear, inflation spreads. This is why global events affect local prices. The grocery store, gas station, and electronics aisle are all tied to global trade. Part 5. Policy. How governments respond. Policy is how governments and central banks try to manage the system. This includes interest rates, taxes, government spending, and regulations. When the economy is overheating, policymakers try to slow it down. When the economy is struggling, They try to stimulate it. But policy usually lags reality, and that lag matters. Decisions are made after problems appear, not before. And policy changes take time to work through the system. Because of that delay, policy often shapes how economic cycles play out, sometimes smoothing them out, and sometimes making them more intense. And sadly, we just have to go through the cycles. Part 6. The Economic Cycle, How It All Moves Together. Now let's put everything together. Because the global economy doesn't move randomly. It moves in cycles, and there are 4 stages. 1. Expansion. This is when, in the very early stage of expansion, recovery begins quietly. That happens before confidence returns, before the headlines improve. Capital starts flowing again. Trade stabilizes. Growth slowly resumes. As expansion continues, jobs become more plentiful, spending increases, and capital flows more freely. Trade expands further, and confidence eventually returns. This is what we like, and what we want to last for a long time. 2. Peak. At the peak. Growth looks great on the surface, but pressure is building underneath. Debt is high. Costs rise. Borrowing becomes more expensive. All of these levels are at or near all-time highs. This is usually when the system becomes fragile. 3. Contraction. In contraction, spending slows. Businesses pull back. Hiring freezes begin. Capital becomes cautious. Trade slows. Policies start reacting. This is where recessions form, and everyone starts running inside and keeping their money close to them and out of the markets. 4. Trough. The trough is the bottom. Confidence is low. Layoffs peak. Fear is high. But this is also where the system resets. Weak businesses fail. Strong ones survive. Conditions stop getting worse. And this is an opportunity where a lot of high return on investments are made because you're getting in at the bottom of the economic cycle before the markets start to go up again. This is where capital is reallocated from the inefficient to the efficient. But remember, that is not financial advice, just what we have seen when looking back in history. Part 7. Who is affected and why it feels uneven. Here's something most people don't realize. The global economy affects everyone, but not equally, and not at the same time. Asset owners often feel changes first. Markets move early. Prices adjust quickly. Wage earners usually feel it later. Through layoffs, reduced hours, rising costs. That's why 2 people can experience the same economy very differently, because of how each earns their money. It's not that one is wrong, they're just exposed to different parts of the system based on the type of income they generate. Part 8. The simple framework, your takeaway. So, here's the simple framework you should remember. Global events change conditions. Capital reacts first. Trade transmits the impact. Policy responds late. The economy moves through a cycle. Different groups feel it at different times. If you understand that sequence, you can understand almost any economic story. The global economy isn't chaos. It's a system, a very strong but delicate system. A system driven by money, trade, policy, and human behavior. Once you understand the framework, you stop reacting to headlines and you start seeing patterns. And when you see the patterns, everything else becomes easier to understand. If you understand how the system works, you don't need to predict the future. You just need to recognize the phase and position yourself accordingly